Apparently, the neighboring business was having similar problems. The confusion was spreading. By end of day, Marcus had lost a half day's productivity, paid his crew overtime for the difficult unloading conditions, and fielded calls from 3 other clients concerned about their upcoming deliveries. The final straw came when Dale discovered that someone had accidentally backed into one of their company trucks, leaving a dent and paint transfer from what appeared to be a blue Lexus, which was, of course, nowhere to be found. Marcus sat at his desk, tallying the day's losses, both financial and in client goodwill. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was actively damaging his business. Something had to be done, and the neighborly approach clearly wasn't going to cut it. Tomorrow, he would confront whoever was responsible, and they would learn that Marcus Wilson's easygoing nature had definite limits. The Oak Ridge Estates Community Center resembled a small country club more than an office. As Marcus pushed through the heavy oak doors, the blast of air conditioning was a stark contrast to the June heat outside. His work boots left subtle dirt marks on the polished marble floor. Behind a curved mahogany desk sat a woman in her 50s with immaculately highlighted blonde hair, a tennis bracelet that caught the light as she typed, and a nameplate identifying her as Beverly Thompson, HOA president. "Excuse me," Marcus said, placing his calloused hands on her pristine desk. "I own Wilson Supply across the street. Someone's decided my private property is now an Oak Ridge parking lot. Care to explain?" Beverly looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly as she took in his dusty work clothes and the sweat stains on his shirt. Her smile never reached her eyes. "Oh, you must be Mr. Wilson. I've been meaning to reach out," she said, her voice dripping with rehearsed courtesy. "We're having our guest parking areas repaved. Improving property values benefits everyone in the area, after all. Our board determined your mostly empty lot would be perfect for temporary overflow." "Your board determined?" Marcus echoed incredulously. "That's my private property. You can't just vote to use someone else's land." Beverly's smile tightened. "We assumed you'd want to be neighborly. The alternative was to have cars parked along the main road. Hardly the image any of us want for the area, your business included." Marcus leaned forward. "My business is losing money right now because my delivery trucks can't access the loading docks. Those empty spaces are for my customers and operations. Perhaps we could compensate you," Beverly suggested, reaching for her checkbook. "Would $500 for the 2 weeks seem fair? That's quite generous considering most of those spaces sit empty anyway." Marcus felt his temper rising. "This isn't about money. It's about asking permission before taking something that isn't yours." Beverly's demeanor cooled instantly. "I don't appreciate your tone, Mr. Wilson. Our homeowners pay substantial dues to maintain the caliber of this neighborhood, a neighborhood, I might add, that has allowed your warehouse to operate despite numerous concerns about its aesthetic impact." Allowed? Marcus nearly laughed. "Your HOA has zero jurisdiction over my property. I want every car removed by tomorrow morning." "That's simply not possible," Beverly replied, shuffling papers on her desk dismissively. "The repaving has already begun. We've issued permits to residents. Perhaps if you'd attended any of the community planning meetings, you could have expressed your concerns earlier." "Meetings I was never invited to about decisions affecting property you don't control," Marcus clarified. "You have until tomorrow morning to fix this." As he turned to leave, Beverly called after him, "Mr. Wilson, the Oak Ridge HOA has very good attorneys. Just something to consider." Marcus paused at the door, his hand gripping the polished brass handle so tightly his knuckles whitened. He turned slowly. "So do I," he replied evenly, though his voice had dropped an octave. "And unlike yours, mine won't be billing you for defending the indefensible." He stepped into the hallway, almost colliding with a man in an expensive suit carrying an architectural portfolio. "Sorry," Marcus muttered, stepping aside. The man glanced at him, then did a visible double-take. "Marcus Wilson, Wilson Supply." Marcus nodded, surprised to be recognized. "Jack Hernandez," the man said, extending his hand. "Henderson Builders. We spoke earlier about the delayed delivery." Marcus Wilson had owned the warehouse on Elmwood Drive for 15 years, having purchased the property after leaving his corporate job to start his own construction supply business. The massive steel building sat on 3 acres just outside the iron gates of Oak Ridge Estates, a luxury development where homes started at 7 figures. For years, the relationship between Marcus's industrial property and the manicured community had been one of mutual disinterest. That changed on a sweltering Monday morning when Marcus pulled his pickup into the lot and slammed on the brakes. Scattered across his private parking area were 11 shiny luxury vehicles, 3 BMWs, a Tesla, 2 Mercedes, and various other high-end cars, all bearing resident stickers from Oak Ridge Estates. What in the actual hell? Marcus muttered. Climbing out of his truck, he circled one of the BMWs, noticing it had been carefully parked in the spot where his delivery trucks usually unloaded supplies. His phone buzzed. It was Dale, his operations manager, texting that he was running late. Marcus snapped several photos of the vehicles and sent them to Dale with the message. Asterisk, did you rent our lot out while I was camping this weekend? Asterisk. Dale's response came quickly. Asterisk DETF. No. Where are we supposed to unload the Henderson ordered? Asterisk. As if on cue, Marcus's phone rang. It was their largest client, Henderson Builders, confirming their delivery schedule for that morning. Marcus grimaced, knowing he'd have to figure this out fast. He approached the nearest car, a gleaming white Tesla with personalized plates that read OAKRIC, and found a note tucked under the windshield wiper. He unfolded it to find an official-looking notice. Asterisk OAKREGE Estates, Tim PORIPRKNPPRMAT. Valid June 3 to 17. Authorized by HOA Board Resolution 22 to 17. Asterisk. Marcus crumpled the paper in his fist. No one had asked his permission. No one had even attempted to contact him. He called the police non-emergency line, but the board dispatcher explained that without posted signs specifically prohibiting parking, it would be considered a civil matter. Put up some signs and call a towing company, she advised before hanging up. By noon, 2 more luxury cars had appeared in his lot, and Marcus's delivery trucks were forced to double park on the street, delaying scheduled shipments and costing him money with every passing hour. The Henderson delivery arrived at 12:30, with nowhere to unload. The driver, a burly man named Frank who'd worked with Marcus for years, leaned out his window with a scowl. You running a valet service now? He asked, gesturing toward the luxury vehicles. Not willingly, Marcus replied, wiping sweat from his brow. The temperature had climbed to 95 degrees, and the asphalt radiated heat like a furnace. We'll have to unload on the side street. This meant manually carrying heavy materials an extra 50 yards, in blistering heat, with no forklift access. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and helped the delivery crew, his frustration growing with each trip. 3 hours and countless trips later, the Henderson order was finally unloaded, a job that should have taken 45 minutes. As Marcus chugged a bottle of water in his office, the landline rang. It was Mrs. Delaney, the elderly bookkeeper. Marcus, honey, I can't get into my parking spot. There's a Range Rover there with one of those Oak Ridge stickers. I had to park 2 blocks away and walk. I'll come help you with your things, Marcus sighed, grabbing his keys. When he returned, he found a tow truck already in his lot, but not one he had called. A sleek Mercedes was being winched up as a silver-haired man in designer sunglasses gesticulated wildly. This is outrageous, the man shouted into his phone. I have a permit. Tell that Thompson woman to get down here immediately. Marcus watched, bewildered, as the tow truck driver shrugged apologetically at the Mercedes owner. Sorry, sir. Got a call saying this car was blocking access to the building next door. Just doing my job. Marcus winced. Mr. Hernandez, I apologize for that situation. As you can see, he gestured toward the HOA office. We're dealing with some unexpected challenges. Jack's expression darkened as he looked between Marcus and the office door. Beverly causing problems again? Let me guess. The parking situation? You know about that? Jack lowered his voice. I'm the architect supervising the repaving project. I specifically told her last week she needed written agreements for any overflow parking arrangements. She assured me everything was taken care of. He made air quotes with his fingers. Well, it wasn't, Marcus replied grimly. And now my business operations are suffering. Jack checked his watch. I have a meeting with her in 5 minutes. Mind if I mention this? This project is already behind schedule, and having residents' cars towed would be problematic. Marcus considered this. Feel free, but make it clear I'm not bluffing about tomorrow's deadline. As Marcus walked back to his truck, his phone buzzed with a text from Dale. Asterisk, don't know what you said to them, but some guy in a suit is out here taking photos of all the cars. Says he's from the HOA asterisk. Marcus smiled for the first time that day. Perhaps Beverly was smart enough to recognize a real threat when she heard one. That fleeting optimism vanished 3 hours later when Marcus returned from a supplier meeting to find not only all the original cars still in his lot, but 5 more luxury vehicles had joined them. Worse, someone had placed orange traffic cones around them, as if to protect their precious status. His phone rang. It was Jack Hernandez. Marcus, I tried. Beverly wasn't receptive. Said something about your property being an ISO that lowered property values, and that you should be grateful they're not pushing for zoning changes. I thought you should know. She's apparently sent an email to residents saying you've graciously agreed to host their vehicles during construction. I what? Marcus nearly shouted. She's manipulating the narrative, Jack explained, making it look like you'll be the bad guy if you take action. Classic Beverly tactic. Marcus leaned against his truck, seething. Thanks for the heads up, Jack. For what it's worth, Jack added, not everyone at Oakridge supports her methods. Some of us actually believe in property rights and common courtesy. After hanging up, Marcus walked the perimeter of his lot, taking photos of each vehicle, their license plates, and the permits on their windshields. He sent everything to his email with a single subject line: evidence. If Beverly Thompson wanted to play hardball, she was about to discover she'd picked the wrong opponent. Marcus hadn't built a successful business from nothing by letting people walk all over him. Tomorrow would be a very educational day for the residents of Oakridge Estates, and especially for their high-handed HOA president. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, researching property laws and towing regulations. His longtime friend, Raj, a real estate attorney, was on speakerphone. They did what? Raj asked, incredulous after hearing the story. That's textbook trespassing, not to mention potentially fraudulent if they're issuing permits for land they don't own. So I can legally tow them. Absolutely. It's your property. Just make sure you post clear signs first, giving reasonable notice. Document everything. They'll likely try to claim they didn't know. Marcus spent $300 at an all-night sign shop and was back at his warehouse by 5 a.m. He installed 8 massive red and white signs around the perimeter. Private property. Unaut horized VAICLES will be TOVED 8 owners XPNC. Effective immediately. He took date-stamped photos of each sign and sent them to Raj, who replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Then he called Big Jim's Towing, a company he'd used for moving heavy equipment. How many vehicles we talking about? Jim asked.